the Good Pod, where today we're talking Elsbeth, Season 2, Episode 10, Finance Bros. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Reed. With me, my co-host, the only person who loves NPR more than Gonzo, Marissa Garza. Marissa, you good?
I'm good. Sometimes these are a little too accurate. Like sometimes you really do nail them. When I was a kid, I had to listen to NPR, so it's kind of like a ingrained habit at this point.
Did you tell me that your dad forced you to watch NPR when you used to drive with him
On the way to piano lessons? It was a time. Wait, don't tell me. And the car talk. But shout out to the clicking and the clack. May one of them rest in peace. I forget which one. Anyway, continue.
I just think it's interesting that, she leaves NPR on for Gonzo. I have heard of other people leaving things on for their pets. Yes. My co-host on my other podcast, A Perfect Match, leaves on Bluey for her dogs every day. I guess for the fact that she leaves NPR means that Gonzo is a very educated doggy.
I like the people who put birds on for their cats. The cats are very on it. They're very.
I think I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid if I got home and there would be like an overturned TV because the cat tried to get the bird on the TV. But yes, here we are. We're hit the midway point here on our Elsbeth season. It seems we have wrapped up one of our major storylines in an interesting way. Before we get into all that, I want to remind you some free and easy ways you can support this podcast. You can do that by a couple of different ways. You can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening, wherever you are watching. If you're listening, you can leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. Also rate us 5 stars. If you're listening on Spotify, rate us 5 stars. You can also leave comments on Spotify. If you're on YouTube, we would love if you would click that like button down there, a little thumbs up, and also leave a comment in the YouTube. We will definitely get back to you on that forum. You can also just email us if you want to chop it up with us about anything Good Wife, Good Pod, Elsbeth related at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. We always love hearing from you. We love interacting with our audience, and those are all the ways you can do that. Thank you so much for rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Marissa, let's get into the Elsbeth of it all. I guess I would say this is kind of a run-of-the-mill case of the week. And then we did get more movements in the more long-running storyline of this season.
So we're just going to talk about Elsbeth's little case of the week at the beginning, but we do have some updates, like you said, on her larger storyline, which I thought were going to go on a little bit longer than they actually did. I was not expecting the Van Ness case to come to a conclusion so quickly, but our discussion on that will come after we talk about the Hepson twins, Peter and Bill, otherwise known as Alan Rook squared.
Yeah. Alan Rook times. I want to do a count of, has all the Spin City cast been used by the Kings? Because over on The Good Wife, we have Michael Boatman, who plays the one and only Julius Kane. We've had Michael J. Fox show up as Lewis Canning. I don't know if anyone else has Connie Britton showed up anywhere on the Kings' radar. But now we have Alan Rook, who also was a big part of that Spin City show. So I thought it was interesting that the Kings I love those Spin City alumni.
He will always be Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off for me as a Chicago kid. That's a huge, like, oh my gosh, this is how you do a days off. This is how you skip school. Like, this is what you can do type of thing. And his character.
He was a Succession guy too?
He was also in Succession playing. Yes, definitely. His character in Succession was basically like a smushed up version of both Peter and Bill. So it was really interesting to see how they split up the character here. But Peter is like your run of the mill hedge fund finance bro type dude. Like he's wearing the big suit, doing a slicked back hair, all of the stuff. And Bill, his brother, has had a change of heart. He's like, I'm leaving this game behind. I'm going to be one with the earth. I'm going to give away all my stuff. This doesn't sit too well with Peter. His golf game is off, which is why we know he's not doing very well. He ends up going on the equivalent of CSNBC and gets questioned like, hey, the fact that your brother is going rogue from the family business is some weird optics here. How do you think this reflects on you and the business? His friends are like, yeah, we heard that Bill sold the yacht to Greta Thunberg. Peter's having a little bit of trouble with Bill's new identity.
Yeah, I liked the kind of characterization of the Bill side of the Hepsons. He's like, we come in on him describing this accident he had with his private jet. He's like, he thought he was going to crash, and that really made him change his life. He's like in I don't know what you would call the getup he was in. Is it kind of like what the monks wear?
Yeah, he said what it was, but I forgot.
kind of a robish thing.
Yeah.
He's really he's selling off all his assets. He's not really affecting Peter in that much of a negative way. He's just kind of being like, listen, if you want to keep going, you keep going, but I'm out of this life. He has found a better way of life. He's all about charity and peace now. This pisses Peter off.
Yep.
We don't really get the real reason, but he seems bothered by the fact that his brother is now all about inner peace.
There is a mention, I think, by Bill before he walks out of Peter's office. Is this about mom or something like that? There's a little bit of a nod, not a huge thing here, but in Succession, Alan Rook's character was like a billionaire who tried to do good. So he was like, I live off in the middle of nowhere and everything's sustainable and all of this stuff, but he still was like part of this majorly huge rich billionaire family who owned the media. If you dissected his character from Succession, you'd get Bill and Peter. One day we see who we think is Bill, but is actually Peter, going up the stairs. He's on the phone, he's talking, he's yelling, all this stuff, goes upstairs, knocks on the door. Bill is super peaceful. He's like, hey, Peter. Peter mutes his phone and ends up wrestling Bill in the middle of the hallway. Bill has moved to Queens. He's not in this penthouse type of situation. The neighbors were hearing what was going on. The walls aren't thick here. This is definitely an old-timey building.
This is interesting because at first it looked like just kind of an old-fashioned brother fight, just like headlocks and wrestling. And when Peter goes up to Bill's door, he's talking on the phone. We're not really understanding what Peter is talking about. We know he's talking about business. We don't know who he's talking to. We don't know if he's talking to himself. We don't know what the deal is. When I saw this, I assumed that we find out later. I was also thinking, what is Peter doing here? Is Peter going to assume his brother's identity? Is he going to kill his brother and act like his brother? Too. He's dressed up as his brother. I guess no one will have known that Bill was there because he's not dressed in his suit. He's dressed as his brother. So at first I was like, is he going to kill his brother and assume identity? I wasn't sure what was going on. And then we get to the pivotal moment where they're fighting. And then Peter throws Bill out a window to his death. I'm like, oh, okay, damn. And then robs the body on his way out. Damn, that's cold.
Well, first of all, I do have to do a production shout out. That was a lot of camera work with the two actors. And this was a lot that we've seen, especially for a network TV show, especially for Elsbeth. And the stunt, the dramatic falling out of the window type of thing. So shout out to production on that one.
There was a lot of doubling work. Someone's face is obscured by a hood. Like, listen, we're Elsbeth on CBS. We're not some big budget movie. We can't do like
they're not gonna CGI work. His face.
Yeah, we can't do CGI work. Like
this isn't Cobra Kai, you know.
We can't CGI Mr. Miyagi's face on someone's body. There's just a lot of work done in shadow, a lot of work where people's heads are turned, but very seamless. If I didn't know what to look for, if I wasn't a veteran of TV watching, I would have been like, oh my god, how'd they do that? But yeah, just how violent this was. It wasn't like an accident. He wanted to throw that guy out the window. Damn, threw him out. Brother's dead on the sidewalk, and he steals his money.
And we know that he wanted to kill him because when he picks up the money and walks over his brother's dead body, he says, we do what we need to do to fix them. But like his actions are fixing a problem in his life, mainly his golf game. That's what I'm taking from
exactly. And because we surmise he's still talking to whoever it is about business. Right. And it's kind of a double meaning. It's like, yeah, when Hepsons have something to do, they take care of business. Like killing my brother, like nothing. don't worry about the killing your brother part. But yeah, for the past couple episodes, we've had these kind of weird twists where we don't really see the murder, but this time we saw it was
everything. There.
Yeah.
It's time for the team to arrive on the scene, and they're inferring that this could have been a mugging because there was a $10 bill like coming out of Bill's pocket. And Peter has shown up on the scene. He's super angry, of course, in all of his rich white man ways. You better find out who did this. And Elsbeth's just like kind of taking it all in. So she does notice that there is a donut vendor on the street, Duncan's Donuts.
His name is Duncan. I loved how he's just like, listen, if you have another cease and desist, that's just my name. My name is Duncan. I have a right to call this Duncan's Donuts. I thought that was really funny, like little twist on things. It was a good time.
You can only imagine how many Duncans have had that story. They like donuts. But here, go ahead.
What'd you think of Smullen being our detective for the second episode in a row?
Okay.
I thought we were rotating.
Do you think that's what the whole, I think Smullen, you have a lot to learn from Smullen, actually meant? Was that Smullen's only going to be here for, like, he's going to be our dude now?
Oh man, I kind of hope that's not the case because I like all the detectives. Like,
Yeah.
I think probably if I was going to get rid of one, I probably would have gotten rid of Smullen, which is interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, he seems to be. This is the second episode in a row, so I'm like, I, I I think they're doing more to make Smullen more likable starting this episode. I think before we were supposed to like not really like Smullen, but I think Smullen is trying to integrate himself with Elsbeth now. He's seeing more of Elsbeth's size. So like maybe Smullen is now a permanent detective with our people.
Or it was just a way to explain why he's going to be on 2 episodes, and it doesn't have to mean that he was rotating like forever. Because yeah, I do miss some of the other ones. I really want, what was his name? Buzz. Mr.
Buzz,
I'm out at 5.
Mr. About sex or money.
Well, Duncan is like, hey, Bill comes here all the time. He loves his chocolate frosted donuts. He's such a great guy. He tips big. But you know, when I saw him this morning, he was not the same. He didn't even stop by, say hi, and didn't even tip me. That doesn't even sound like Bill. So of course, Elsbeth is like, oh, interesting. And all of a sudden, they found a kid a couple blocks away that had money on him. So I bet you that person was of a certain skin color, and they brought the person in, and that's how that worked. Back at the station, Elsbeth is reading the book that was about the brothers called the Hepson Way, and she questions why the TV was on in Bill's apartment when Bill was murdered, because the whole theory here is that Bill was mugged. So the murderer went upstairs, turned on his TV, and then killed Bill. And everyone's like, I leave my TV on all the time. Like, this is what I do. And I get that. This is where we find out that Gonzo listens to NPR.
Right. I thought that was a little flimsy of Elsbeth to be like, what did they do? Go up to his apartment, mug him? I was like, I mean, kinda. That's kind of what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
Peter led Bill out of his apartment and then killed him. A mugger could do the same thing. If they know who Bill is, they could be like, let me get him out of his apartment, mug him, and then throw him out the window. I don't know why they would throw him out the window, but that is kind of what happened. So I thought that was a little flimsy of Elsbeth to be like, like, that's weird, isn't it? I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not that weird.
I think she's like, the show, it's kind of stretching for some stuff.
Yeah, Elsbeth used her Elsbeth sense at the crime scene and looked at the brother and was like, I think it's the brother. Let me figure out a way to prove that. Basically, that's what Elsbeth does at all. She looks at the criminal who always comes back to the scene of the crime, and she's like, it's probably that person. Let me use this whole episode to prove they did it.
Speaking of proving that they did it, she's like, okay, I got to do my other classic Elsbeth thing and confront the person straight on. So she goes to visit Peter at work. Elsbeth thinks she's like walking into the movie Wall Street. She's like, why aren't people yelling? What's going on? And I did like this very soft commentary on the finance world, the fact that everybody wears vests. Like, they can't wear suits anymore because we're much more chill. We don't yell because we have the internet. That is a thing that I wish that the show did a little bit more to tell the audience what was going on in that world, but it was a nod, so I was happy to see it.
That's kind of what I miss from 90s TV, because anytime you watch a 90s TV show and there was a visit to a stock exchange or a stock market, you would just see a pandemonium with buy, sell. That was a staple of 90s TV, and I kind of miss that world. Like, as Elsbeth points out, like, it's so quiet. I expected it to be more of a panic going around. Did you think Elsbeth was a little quirkier than even a usual Elsbeth is?
Well, she's a little nervous, right?
Yeah, because she's talking to Peter. She's like, I thought there was gonna be a lot of she's doing all these like movements with her hands. I was like, okay, this is a little more quirky than Elsbeth usually is. And when she goes to the TV station later, she's very weird and quirky there. I was like, it's a little more quirky than I'm used to for Elsbeth.
I think this has to do with the other news that's going on with her in this episode. I do think that, or she's going back to original form, because that is like original form Elsbeth. The whole thinking and not paying attention to what people are saying and then solving something and coming back. So I don't know if they're trying to bring a little bit more of that back to her character.
A little more kookiness. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it turns out that the kid that they arrested, wouldn't you know, it didn't pan out. And wouldn't you know, he had an alibi. Like, he was at the gym and it got punched with a boxing glove. So everyone saw him there. That's not going to work. So they asked Peter, like, who else could it have been? And Bill's just like, well, you don't get to the top of the mountain without pissing some people off, pretty much. And Elsbeth is very interested, like, how did you get here? And Bill is like classically media trained. He's all like, da 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 da, we sweat every cent. And I was like, okay, all right, you've been asked this question a gazillion times and have answered it a gazillion times.
It all started with a single mother, hard on our luck, and me and my brother. We got here because we sweat every cent. That's like his motto for life. Sweat every cent. That's probably not the name of his book.
Like, if it was an infomercial, the crowd would be like, sweat every cent. Like every time.
That's the name of his NBC. Sweat every cent.
In Peter's office, there was a rare paper currency bill from the Grant administration. I love how they said paper currency because no one's using cash anymore. Do you use cash?
No, I rarely use cash. The only way I would get cash if I was literally to go to an ATM and like get cash out for some reason. That's the only way I would get cash, unless I'm giving cash as like a gift. Like the only time I get cash, I'll tell you how I get cash. I get cash every Christmas, not every birthday. Anytime I see my mother, I get cash because it's a holiday. I get a card and $40 cash in the card because my mother is an older person. She doesn't know how to Venmo. She doesn't know how to do anything else to do money electronically. She has to give me cash. That is the only way I ever nowadays have cash in my wallet, is if I got someone with my mother, and that cash will stay in my wallet for a good 6 months until there's some weird occurrence. I'm like, oh, I actually remember I have cash and I can pay with cash right now.
I had, my grandma's name is Minerva, and so I had some Minerva money.
Wow.
I had some Minerva money in my pocket, and I like for quite some time. And then there was a Girl Scout cookie booth, and I was like, Minerva money. Thank you for the Minerva money.
That's the only that I definitely have spent some Christmas money on Girl Scout cookies when that has happened. But now the Girl Scouts take Venmo. Now they got got a little card reader on the phones. That way, these Girl Scouts have grown into the technology.
You can order online. They will get delivered to you. I used to work for the Girl Scouts, but yes, they are there in the 21st century. We have made it.
I know where you can order online now, but I cannot tell my wife that, or we will have nonstop Girl Scout cookies coming to the house. One of my wife's favorite treats are Thin Mints from the Girl Scout cookies.
Those are good.
I'm not gonna let her. I found that out. I was like, I better keep this from the wife, or our money will go to Girl Scout cookies.
I had the idea of putting a chocolate protein shake in the blender with Thin Mint cookies, and I was like, what do you mean? Ooh, I know you're a picky eater.
I think you have too much time on your hands, Marissa.
I just have limited food choices.
What do I have in the cabinet? Protein bars and Girl Scout cookies.
Protein bar, a protein shake, like chocolate milk with little pieces of Thin Mint in it. It would be fine. Like a chocolate milkshake with Thin Mints in it. Delicious. Delicious.
Chunky.
No, like in the blender, Jason. Do you know how a blender works?
That's interesting. I'm not gonna bash your choices, but it's interesting.
Huh. Okay, I'll have that. I think I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know how it goes.
Jason was right. It's a bad idea. Let us know how.
Okay, so Bill collected rare bills, paper currencies, and Peter had one up in his office. So Elsbeth does her thing of using that as a way to get into Peter's mind and let Peter know, hey, I know you're a twin and I know what twins do. She goes into this whole story about how she was in college and she had a friend that she was waving to all the time, and then she was upset because she wasn't waving back, but it turned out it was a twin. And hey, that reminds me of that one time that I talked to the donut man outside of Bill's apartment and he said that you were, so maybe it was you, Peter. Maybe it was you. It was very Elsbethian, like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about me, blah, blah, blah. And also, I think you killed someone.
Yeah, there's a distraction over here. Blah, blah, blah. Like you start getting the Charlie Brown. You're like, wow. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I know you were there the morning of. Like, oh, like now I'm listening. Now I'm caught unawares. So yeah, that's a classic Elsbeth move to let you know, like, hey, buddy, I'm on to you. So this is the time where you are going to sleep. Remember in season 1 where Elsbeth would do this, and then the killer would do something and they would be caught in the act of trying to hide their murder. I think they kind of went away from that in most of these crimes. Like now we just kind of find the evidence and confront them with the evidence that we know you did it. But typically in like season 1, Elsbeth would spook them and they would go and try to hide their tracks and get caught.
They commit another crime.
Yeah, and then we turn them like, we got you, trying to cover your tracks. Now we just kind of get evidence and be like, hey, we know you did it. You're under arrest now. Come with us. But yeah, she pretty much just nails him like, hey, I know you got something to do with this, so like, I'm on to you.
But Peter's like, I didn't spend too much time at Bill's place. What a weird answer, first of all. Mm-hmm. Who says something like that? And then he's like, I gotta go. A meeting started 10 minutes ago. My calendar will have my alibi on it. Give any other questions to my assistant. Okay, thanks, bye. So he leaves, and his assistant comes back and is like, hey, your meeting's not for another 20 minutes. And he's like, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Also, I need to golf more.
I thought that was a weird, elongated way to be like, I knew I didn't have a meeting. I just wanted to get rid of them. Yes. I'm a villain.
He puts the ball and it doesn't go in, but it's very close. He's devastated. He's like, oh my gosh, my game is off.
He gets upset about his declining golf game.
Yes. Smolin has found out that after some investigation in the neighborhood, basically Bill was walking around handing out $100 bills. Everybody loved Bill. Bill was so beloved in the neighborhood that if anybody did anything to him, they would turn in whoever that person was. So they think that, okay, we got to abandon this neighborhood thing. This must be somebody from his old wife. So of course, Elsbeth again is like, hey, what about Peter? And everyone's like, yeah, but Peter had this alibi of being on the phone with TV host Ava Monnier.
Ava French.
So they're reviewing the footage from the call, and Peter is talking badly about this guy called Conrad Deckles. Basically said that Bill forced the board to fire Conrad. So that's the motive for the murder during this acquisition. Peter was on TV, but it wasn't live TV. He's on a phone. He could be anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. My first thought would be like, let's find out where he was, not the fact that it was a pre-recorded television show.
Yes. And also they are doing this whole like Bill got this guy Conrad fired from his job. So then Conrad is now the suspect for killing. No, was it Bill? No, Peter got Conrad fired. So Conrad went and killed Bill. So I'm like, what? Wait, also, why would Conrad kill Bill? Like Conrad even says so later when he's like, why would I kill Bill? If I was going to kill anybody, I'd kill Peter. So right there, I was just like, why was this even a suspect here?
Elsbeth writers, I know you're listening. Can we please move through the alphabet? There are too many C names. Too many C's in this episode. I can't keep it all straight. So if we could move down the alphabet, more names would be great. Yeah. I would enjoy that because it's really hard to remember all of the names.
Conrad, Connor, Carter.
Yeah, you're right. So it's a messy motive that Peter was trying to set up here for Conrad on television. But he was like, he thought this out if he was going to, because this was a conversation that was recorded before he called in later while he was murdering his brother.
Well, and I don't even know if he was trying to set up Conrad in this thing. Smolin just kind of ran with that. Smolin's like, hey, maybe it's the Conrad guys.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about that. But, that really kind of goes nowhere. It's like Smolin brings Conrad in and it's like, why would I kill Bill? Why would I kill Peter? Okay. Yeah, true.
Yeah. Elsbeth does go to the studio, does her due diligence to talk to Ava, and this is where we notice she's a little distracted, a little off her game, but we do find out that the show is never pre-recorded. Peter calls in every once in a while to control the narrative. He's in stocks, so he has to get the narrative outright so people feel safe in investing in things. And Elsbeth calls it, oh, you mean manipulating the market? And it was we call it activist investing. Oh yeah, that sounds so much better. I put in my notes that Elsbeth does a monk move. If you ever watch the show Monk, just before he solved any murder, he'd just be moving his hand, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she was staring off into space, and then she goes behind some column and is stuck behind the column. I'm like, this is kind of weird. So yeah, I know we talked about Elsbeth and her tote bag just last week. And I was just like, are there anything in the tote bags? I'm not sure.
No, there's never anything in the tote bags. It really bothers me because I'm I carry tote bags and my tote bags are never that light.
I was like, it just seems like there's nothing in there. The tote bags just kind of flopping around. There's no real heft or weight to it. They carry Preston to complain, y'all are putting too much in the tote bags. That's going to hurt my back. Y'all got to lighten the load these tote bags. Was that the case? It just seems to be nothing in there. They're just flopping around. I did take note of how weird Elsbeth was in this moment. I do think that maybe they are trying to up the kookiness of Elsbeth a little bit. Okay, we've got to have Elsbeth be a little more subdued. Let's up the kooky factor.
Yeah. Elsbeth is binging all of the interviews with Ava and Peter, trying to learn what this relationship is about. Like any finance bro that I know, Sorry, I got distracted. It's snowing outside. I pulled an Elsbeth.
Let it snow.
He will not let a woman get in any words. Like, he's just on there to blab and blab and blab and blab. And the only time he asked Ava a question was when he was on the phone during the time of the murder. So Elsbeth is like, what if Peter killed Bill while on the phone? Yeah, well, duh. But yes, what if he did? And then they go back to, yeah, but his location was logged as Manhattan. So like, oh, darn. But you do hear in this recording him say, Ava, 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 shut up.
Yeah.
And I was like, where is this going? But apparently it clocked something for Elsbeth because she goes to Peter's office. This was Elsbeth on her game. Like, this is Elsbeth really Elsbething. She's like, oh, I don't remember anyone's name. Samantha. What's that person's name again? And you're trying to get Peter to say Ava as many times as he possibly can because somehow this Ava, 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 shut up thing made her think of an automated assistant whose name is Ada. And did we know about Ada before?
No, which is why I'm like, for us, the audience, it's hard to follow along. I thought this episode, more than a lot of others, had things where like, you'll get it later. It's like, what is he saying? What is he talking about? And I see the show, you'll get it later. Don't worry about it. He likes to say, shut up, Ava, a lot. The show's like, you'll get it later. Don't worry about it. And we get it here where it's like Elsbeth comes into the office and she's trying to kind of rile Peter up a little bit by using the whole, what's that lady's name again? I don't remember her name, which forces Peter to yell Ava's name because it's Peter. He likes to yell things. He starts yelling Ava's name, and then we hear the electronic assistant go off, whose name is Ada. So I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get it now. I'm starting to put pieces together.
Yeah, it was like, okay, we got there. And nothing really comes of this conversation other than Elsbeth telling Peter with this demonstration that she knows that he wasn't where he told us he was. And I do love that she leaves his office saying, well played.
Yeah, gets I like the conceit of this, right? Because they point out all the times, as a podcaster, if you ever have had someone on a show you're covering named Alex or Alexa, and you're near a personal assistant, you have that thing going off. It's happened to me a couple times on a podcast where I'm saying that. Did you hear that?
Huh?
She just did it. She just heard me. I whispered it in the microphone. So there you go. The great demonstration of that was my electronic assistant going off, and I didn't even want it to. So that's exactly what they're trying to point out here, because in that interview that Peter did while he was murdering his brother, the electronic assistant never went off, and that to Elsbeth proves that Peter wasn't in his office at the time of that interview, was off killing his brother.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I unplugged her. Like, it's the one time I remembered. Well played. And then, speaking of the tote bags, when Elizabeth enters the scene, the assistant lady is like carrying all of her tote bags in because like all of this stuff. When Elizabeth leaves the scene, she has no tote bags.
Where did tote bags go? Did the assistant?
The poor lady better not have to go get those bags again. Just like keep your hands on your tote bags, Elizabeth. That's all I gotta.
Kings, hire us to be tote bag coordinators.
We are great at continuity. We will figure this out.
We will make sure those tote bags we can load those tote bags with paper, heavy,
water bottle.
But we can do a whole bunch to help you with your tote bag continuity. We can make sure the tote bags are where they're supposed to be in every shot of the film. Hire us, Kings. Hire us.
If you're gonna use the tote bags, use the tote bags.
Yeah, be effective with it.
Now, Elisabeth has called Smullen to the crime scene, and Smullen's on his way up the stairs, and he gets a call from Saskatchewan, but it's Elisabeth being Elsbeth, and they reenact the crime here. And it was really funny because it was a play-by-play, and then she's like, boom, you're dead.
This was hilarious. But as Elsbeth pops out of the scene to attack Smullen and reenact the crime, just forcing Smullen over to the window. He has Kaya timing her to make sure it fits within the 32 seconds, because Peter did not talk for a whole 32 seconds on that interview with Ava.
Let Ava talk.
Yeah, which is
32
odd for him,
whole seconds.
because he never lets anyone else talk, but he let Ava talk for 32 seconds. So we're timing the theory to see if Peter could have shoved Bill out that window in 32 seconds, which, as we time it, the timing fits. He could have done it in that 32 seconds.
There's the discovery by everyone of VPNs.
Yeah. Ooh, VPNs. What? And, us as reality TV show watchers that may or may not have to watch TV shows from other countries and may have to pretend we are other countries using VPNs, we are very knowledgeable about VPNs.
It's the cheapest way to move. You just pick up your IP and move it somewhere else.
Yes.
But I did like this explanation as to why his location wasn't where he saw he was. And then after all this, like, Smollen's like, oh yeah, hey, because by the way, Hepson took a giant position on Cobalt like the day before Bill's death, and then did like, how long were you sitting on this, Smollen? Like, what's going on? Where did this come from?
Doing some detective work. Yeah. You actually came to this with something. Like, we don't, like, Elsbeth and Kai don't have to do the work for once. Smollen's actually come with some real good knowledge.
He comes up with it, but then she's like, what does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. I thought you could figure it out.
He's like, that's your job, isn't it?
Just go do it.
This episode also, some of the stuff we've found out was Kaya finding stuff out. So there's still continuing. Kaya's doing a good job. Kaya is finding stuff out. Elsbeth's not the only one here. Kaya is out there finding information. So they're really doing a slow burn with building Kaya up as a intuitive detective-like person.
Yeah, I mean, she's earning her keep, which we will talk about in the next segment about the next part of the story. Peter goes to lunch with Ava because they're friends, because that's just how the business is. And like, everybody loves, but like, people are coming up, people being the waiter. It's like, oh my gosh, your brother donated to my school and basically saved my life. And oh yeah, so sorry about your loss because you're not your brother and you're the mean one and I don't like you. And so
yeah, I mean, this has happened
that must be hard, right? That sucks.
Yeah, it's happened like 3 times throughout the episode where someone has mistaken Peter for Bill, and they're thanking Bill for all the charity he's done, and Peter's like, that's not me, I'm not Bill, I'm Peter, I'm the mean one. And so it really kind of plays into the whole, like, no one likes Peter, everyone likes Bill, and that really getting under Peter's skin.
Yeah, very much so. And Ava is using this to her advantage because she's like, the cops keep coming, they keep coming back, I have to keep telling them information. And if you want me to keep your secret, I need you to give me 2 calls a week and give me actual stock tips, not this fluff that you do all the time. And Peter's response is, well, I don't have to call you. I could call the lady on the weekends and make her ratings go up. So kind of puts Ava out of business on that one and leaves a $5 bill to cover lunch. Like, this is a place that is not a $5 lunch situation. Like, this is a fancy schmancy lunch place. For that, right after Elsbeth and her tote bags have arrived. And basically in the conversation, this is where we find out the Cobalt Connection, battery tech. And without that money, Cobalt could still, like, big Cobalt would win because Cobalt would still be needed. Cobalt is really bad for the environment and people are enslaved and killed to get it. So I encourage you to do some research on what's going on in the Congo with Cobalt right now, and has been for a long time, and really kind of think about what you're buying and when you're buying it. So I would have been on Team Bill's side at this in this, but Peter used that to his advantage and really made money off of the fact that he killed his brother. And Elsbeth is like, is he that? Who would do that? And Ava's like, oh no, he's that guy. He'd do that.
Yeah, this is definitely the smoking Cobalt gun because, Peter bought Cobalt knowing he was going to kill his brother, knowing it would skyrocket the price of Cobalt. So for him to make a profit on that. And, that's kind of the scummy guy that Peter is. It tells you how detached Peter was from killing his brother. Like, hey, you know what? I'm planning on killing my brother. I could also make money off it. Win-win for me.
You definitely sweat that scent. So Peter's on top of his game. He thinks he's gotten away with everything. He told Ava where to go. He got an acquisition at work. He announces it and his stock starts to tank. And everyone's like, oh, Ava's reporting that the feds are outside. This is so bad. So then Peter's really mad. And this is where we get the usual Elsbeth takedown at the end of the case. It was a rare $5 bill that Peter had left Ava at the table because the serial number was all 8s. And what do we know about rare paper currency, Jason? Who collected that? The one and
our
only
guy Bill. Our man Bill.
So where could Peter have gotten said $5 bill? Only from Bill's pocket when he killed him. And this is where we get the whole, like, Bill was the favorite, mom hugged him first.
Yeah,
this whole thing, which was like talked a little bit about when Elsbeth did go visit him at the office, because he was like, oh, this is such a nice picture, who, where are you? And he's like, mom told me to take the picture.
That's a
So
big
not
yikes.
great.
That is a
Yeah,
huge
not
yikes
great.
for Bill and Peter's mom, like, to be that obvious about who your favorite is. Because I mean, listen, if you got kids, you have a favorite.
Yeah.
I only have one. But yeah, it was interesting where this other motive comes out about how much he resented his brother because he was their mother's favorite. And now everyone loves Bill and hates Peter now. This, I guess, led him even to more hate his brother and want to kill him. Not even just for any monetary gain, but also just because he was resentful and jealous of
Yeah.
of everyone loving his brother. I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to spin it.
And he also said it wasn't just his life to throw away. I'm like, is that because he was doing all the work and you were going to get poor
Yeah.
either way? You know what I mean? I don't really know what's going on. But in true finance bro, white man fashion, the last thing that Peter says before he is taken away is, "You think I'm going down for this? Probably not."
It left me to wonder, like, will we ever get an episode where there's a sinister six of Elsbeth's rogues gallery? They've all got out of jail on technicalities, or they're all out or
Great.
something. And I have to think of who are former guest stars I would want to all come back. Like, let's say there's like 5 people that are all out of jail, all arrested due to Elsbeth's investigations, who would want to get together and try and take on Elsbeth in whatever way they try it. Uh, it's a thought exercise for another day. I don't know if we can come up with it now. But I
Yeah.
think that would be interesting to have returning guest stars. Nathan Lane, I think would be was
Jenna
one that sticks out to me.
Krakowski.
Jenna Krakowski, Vanessa Bayer
Wait,
would be interesting.
Vanessa Williams.
Oh, Vanessa Williams too, yes. So I mean, we came with 4 right there. I think it's a pretty fun exercise. So
Oh my
written about
gosh.
that and to see
Vanessa
like
Williams would have to be like the ringleader. You know, like I see
mm-hmm.
her being in the Marvel, the Thunderbolts or whatever. She's
Yeah.
like the Julie Louise Dreyfus of
Yes. Yeah.
the Elsbeth universe.
That would be interesting. That would be fun. I could see that being like a season-long plot, right? Of like
That would
them
be
working in
great.
the shadows to go against Elsbeth. I think that would be fun. It's not really the Elsbeth style that we're used to, but I think it would be a fun little exercise in the background of going on in an Elsbeth season. As for another
Again.
season, we're dealing with another season, what we thought was going to be a season-long plot, which maybe
Yes.
not. Yeah.
Okay, last episode, Elsbeth is going to the Zen world because she's freaked out this is going to happen. And then Kaya's like, look, I can help you, but you're going to have to tell me everything. So at the beginning of this episode, she's doing just that. She's telling Kaya everything in a van while waiting to go to a crime scene. Kaya is pretending to not listen because she has headphones on. These two people are friends. Why would this conversation happen here was my big question.
I guess it's because Elsbeth is trying to technically honor the client attorney privilege. So she makes Kaya wear headphones so that Kaya couldn't hear her but can hear her. I don't even think this would legally make sense.
Also, you could have still had her wear headphones, but not do it 2 seconds before you're going to a crime scene.
True.
That's where I was like, oh. But we do learn the whole story at this point.
Mm-hmm.
10 episodes in, we do learn
they say
what's going on.
They say it very succinctly. For those that haven't put it together yet, here is the whole of this issue.
Yeah,
because we could have surmised this is what was going on, but they're like, no, we're just going to put it all on our front street. This is exactly what happened. No ifs, ands, or buts. As Elsbeth like breaks the whole thing down.
Yeah, so she's like, hey, it was a big divorce case. They needed a lawyer, a woman lawyer, because that's how things are. The wife did say that he beat her up, but you know what? There was no evidence and like had this little nagging voice in her head where she should have believed the woman, but there was no evidence. And it's not a lawyer's job to really believe someone. It's like to go by the evidence. But Elsbeth does say that this voice in the back of her head was really bothering her. And once she found out that the report was suppressed, this is what made her come to New York. Like, we finally learned that. And Kaya, who was not listening, tells Elsbeth, you know, if that's what happened, then you have the right to defend yourself. And we do get a nice little moment at the end, like, thank you for trusting me. I think they're back for the 2 episodes they were not back. I think they're back.
If they were not on the same page for probably about 15 minutes collectively.
Yeah, that was it.
Now they're back on the same page. That wasn't really like we thought there'd be an episode of Kaya avoiding Elsbeth because she thought she was a bad guy, but now it's just like, oh no, 15 minutes, we're all good now. Elsbeth explained everything without actually telling me, which is also very flimsy. But I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was a little weird. Carter, Van Ness's lawyer, who we've seen a couple other times this season, comes to visit Elsbeth at the station and he tells her, hey, we got this press release. We're going to release this press release. And it's basically going to say that if there is a report, we're not saying that there is one, but if there is one, the only person who could have suppressed it is Elsbeth Hassioni.
Wait. I'm sorry, not an interesting way. This was a fun way to frame this, because I thought that Carter, when we first were introduced to him in this season, that first episode, he felt like a bad guy, like a really bad guy. I felt like he was threatening Elsbeth, literally. And now he's kind of helping Elsbeth in this episode. I'm like, okay, so what are you supposed to be doing here? Bad guy, good guy, now all of a sudden is on Elsbeth's side here.
Well, he does mention that Van Ness is not a great guy before all of this. And he is giving her a warning. He's like, Van Ness doesn't know I'm here. I'm just trying to give you a warning. And Elsbeth's like, yeah, I do know that this guy has a temper because I did read the police report that I cannot find anymore and has been suppressed. And that Carter knows that Elsbeth has a way to get out of this, but Elsbeth is just so taken aback that she's in this position that she doesn't know what to do. The whole thing here is if Elsbeth does anything, she could be sued for breaking privilege, which is something that comes up a lot in the King universe. It's the privilege of a lawyer. So she's in between a rock and a hard place.
It was interesting that Carter was like, you don't practice law anymore, so it doesn't matter if you get your law license revoked. Like, the rest of us at the law firm, we still practice law. So you should be the one. Technically, you're kind of like a cop now, so you can take the fall for this, right?
Yeah, you could do this.
You wouldn't mind losing your law license for this. You don't practice law anymore, right? I was like, no, I can still be fired from this job for
which
suppressing information.
Yeah.
Carter.
When Wagner and Lieutenant Connor find out about the press release, they ask Elsbeth, like, hey, is this true? And Elsbeth, like, yeah, I'll resign. Like, it's okay, I'll resign. And Wagner's like, hey, not too fast there. Remember what happened last season with me being accused of being corrupt and you stood by me? This isn't over. We're going to stand by you. Just keep going.
Oh, this is so
friends.
So nice. I love this moment. And even right before this, because Elsbeth knows this press release is going to come out. So she knows it's probably over for her when the press release comes out. She's ready for it. Even before Wagner calls her in, and she has that meeting with Smullen, where Smullen has took Conrad in, and he's like, all right, Elsbeth, tell me why this is a mistake. Tell me why I shouldn't have brought Conrad in. And Elsbeth starts to go in on Smullen, but then gets told by Kaya to hear about the press release. She's like, you know what, Bobby? She calls him by his first name, Bobby, even though she's like, you know what, Bobby, I'm not going to tell you to do anything wrong because you're a great detective and I really enjoy working with you. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Because she thinks she's on her way to the fire. So she wants to leave Smullen with a little dignity in his job, so not tell him how he's royally screwed up like she usually likes to do.
Agreed. Stuff happens in the other case. And then there's a poker night. So she comes in and she's all like, Peter wasn't in Manhattan. Like, she's figured all this out. And they're like, cool. We've been sitting here thinking about ways that you could break privilege without breaking the law. Everyone's there except for the detectives who are not there anymore, I guess. But everyone's in on there.
Smullen's there and confused. Smullen's like, what are we talking about? Smullen has not been brought up to date yet on the whole Elsbeth attorney-client.
We're playing poker, right?
Yeah, I thought we were here to play poker. What are we talking about attorney-client privilege?
But it's nice to see the support from everyone. For Elsbeth, they just showed up for her, which is great. Then this weird shot of Van Ness and his team menacingly walking down the street.
Talking about, the comic book movies, as you did a little bit earlier, like, it's like a villain group walking down the street and like the slow motion shot. I was like, okay, that's a fascinating way to light that and to shoot that.
And there was fog behind them and everything. There was this whole thing. Also, Van Ness did not look how I thought he would look. Not that I had any idea, but the swoopy hair. They definitely got a villain. He definitely had that vibe.
I didn't think he would be kind of like a tall, hunky Santa, which is the vibe I got from this. But yeah, I thought he would have been a little bit more schmarmy, a little bit more outwardly villainous. But this guy kind of looked like a mean Santa, which I didn't expect. Silver haired and all that. But yeah, I would say he was appropriately villainous.
Yeah.
Got the look. Yeah. He got the look.
And this is coming right after Elsbeth has taken down Peter. So she's full of confidence, ready to go. They have had this plan since poker night because Kaya asks her, hey, you ready? And she's like, yeah, I'm ready. So she confronts Van Ness on the street. And Carter's like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Elsbeth is really good at baiting people into confessing that they've committed a crime. Like, she is really good at it. So she's like, I'm a woman that's got nothing left to lose, and your secrets are okay with me. But also, True Rose came to me and asked for help on her case. I could help her. And he goes full in on threat mode. It's like, I will make your life hell. I was just like, oh, really? Like, how would you do that? Tell me. How would you make my life hell? In very specific terms. He's like, I have friends in the police and all this stuff. What we don't see is off camera, Kaya is sitting up against the wall listening to this whole thing. A client threatens a lawyer in front of a witness. They no longer have privilege. So this is how Elsbeth can now defend herself. She can say what she needs to say. She can help True Rose if she wants. She can go. And she says, I'm really good at defending. And gotta tell you, Jason, I was so excited at that moment in this episode because I was like, oh my God, are we getting back in the courtroom? Is this what's going to happen? Is Kaya going to help with the investigation? Is Kaya the new Kalinda? Like, I was all like, oh my gosh, here we go. Did not turn out that way, but I was hyped. And we do get like a little nod from Carter on the other side. Like,
Elsbeth, got my memo. Good job. I'm now probably out of a job now that Mark Van Ness might be either, I don't know if Van Ness is going to go to jail or if he's going to fire his law team. Good job. You put me out of a job. Thank you so much.
Well, but also I think I don't know if he wanted that job. Like, I think this was like a larger part of that plan. On the news, we hear that Van Ness's teams did confirm that there was evidence of the report and got info from police sources. And that was it. That was it, Jace. That was it.
Yeah. The police source is Connor, we find out. It's Lieutenant Connor that gave them details about the report. All of this Van Ness stuff has been so murky and so like not really clear. And I don't know. Is this the end of it? Are we going to get any more? Because it felt at the end of it felt kind of final. It felt like they were putting it to bed.
Yeah. I think this is the fuel that Elsbeth needs to really go after Milton Crawford, because at the end of this episode, Kaya's like, I can't lose you, Elsbeth. You have more to do. And then it's like pan to Milton Crawford.
We look over to a picture of Milton Crawford like, that's what they're talking about. Yeah. That's the unfinished. So I just have to wonder, in the lead up to this season, are they like, let's make this Van Ness thing our season-long arc. And they're like, hey, we just heard we can get Michael Emerson on as a villain. We already started filming this Van Ness stuff. How do we get rid of it fast? We'll just wrap it up in a random mid-season episode, and then the rest of the season we can focus on Crawford. That's what it kind of felt like. They were like, all right, let's drop the Van Ness stuff.
I wonder if it's like that, or Milton Crawford, the actor, Michael Emerson, was only available for certain times in the season. And so it was like, we need some filler in between here. I know Van Ness stuff.
It just felt so rushed. Like, nope, that's over. I know we hyped it up all season that this was going to come out. We had a big ominous meeting with Carter and Elsbeth at the beginning of the season that we thought Elsbeth was going to be in danger for a long amount of time. She was in danger for like one episode legally.
And I wanted to see her defend herself. And then also give Kaya an opportunity to get in on the investigation. And maybe this is where it will go with the Milton Crawford of it all. She doesn't have her law license. She can't go in the courtroom. But what can we see?
It was a bit of a letdown because, especially since in this poker night thing, we're like, let's talk about how we can overcome attorney-client privilege. I thought this was going to lead to a much bigger, like, heist-ish type of thing. Plan. Wagner, you're going to do this. Kaya, you're going to do this. But then for it to just end so easily in like Kaya overhearing a threat, and now Elsbeth can tell whatever she wants to tell, and we don't even see Elsbeth telling what she wants to tell, was such a fizzle of a storyline.
It could have been Elsbeth's 11, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what it felt like it was leading to. And maybe that is what the Crawford thing will be. Maybe we'll get input from all of our people and we'll actually be able to see it. We see a plan hatched and we see a plan done. But this really just kind of felt like it all happened off screen. It felt disappointing for a plot line to be given this much attention for like 10 episodes and just be like, it's over.
They wrestled in the hallway and then threw it out the window.
Yeah. Robbed its body was done. Right after everyone was on the pavement. Maybe we'll get more from the Van Ness thing, but it really felt like it was a wrap up of a story.
Agreed.
At the end there.
Well, we also do have to remember, though, on this, that Crawford did have a play in this, right? He is the one who got this in the story in the first place. So maybe there is still some Van Ness stuff to happen, because if he has any friends in the police or in the justice system, it has to do with Milton Crawford. There is some opportunity for continuing here, but this is definitely the stop of the anxiety play. For sure.
Yeah, we will see. And that's the end of this episode. Listen, we have a 20 episode order for this season. We're on episode 10, so we're halfway home to the finale. Very interesting to see where we will go from here and how the Crawford case gets wrapped up. I'm really hoping they give it more love and attention than this Van Ness thing had, and we actually get a lot of interesting development in that story. So, do you want to tell the good people where they can find you, what you're up to, and all that good stuff?
Sure. I can be found at it's me, MarissaG.com. Mainly because I don't know where, I mean, I know where I am right now, but I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 days from now. You know what I mean? So if you want to keep up with me, that's the best place. You can join my mailing list. I send out a variety of different topics, stuff on podcasting, stuff on organizing creative systems. Totally. That's like, if you want to out on that with me, love to hear from you, and other random thoughts in my head. So if you'd like to join me there, that would be great. I'm also on Blue Sky and Substack as It's Me, Marissa G. So feel free to find me wherever you may.
Nice.
How about you, Jason?
You can find me on social media, on Blue Sky at JR33D. That's where I am there. As far as podcasting goes, I am on the podcast The Perfect Match with my co-host Asia Welsh, talking about Married at First Sight. Season 18, it has gotten very, very juicy in the last few weeks. If you're into mess TV, that's where you want to be, because the mess is messing. If you're ever familiar with that show and either you watched it, you haven't watched it in a while, want to come back to it, there are affairs, scandals, all that good stuff. That show with Asia Welch and sometimes Mari Forth, come over there and hear about it with me over on A Perfect Match. Other than that, I'll be here talking Elsbeth as long as we got it for, and always talking Good Wife as our rewatch continues. We are well into season 2 on our Good Wife rewatch. We recently had a Elsbeth only watcher convert over to Good Wife. That could be you too. Come on over. We're having a bunch of fun over there.
Those drop on Mondays.
On Mondays, yes.
And there's a whole library to listen to.
You can have a lot of fun with that. That's where you can find us. And until next week, stay good.